The Edmonton Oilers trailed the Florida Panthers 2-0 in the Stanley Cup Final. A whole lot to discuss. Let's get to work.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Locked On Oilers. I am your host, Nick Zararis. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Oilers your first listen of the day. A whole lot to discuss, but before we get to today's show, it is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. So we're going to start macro. We're going to start with the series at large. First segment. Second segment, game 2 itself. Third segment, mentality going into game 3. Let's go. Macro. You never want to be down 2-0 in a series. I know the old adage about a series doesn't start till the road team wins a game. It is difficult to come back from 2-0 down. It is not impossible. It is difficult. The Oilers have responded well to adversity, both in the regular season and in the postseason. There are some cracks showing based on how Game 2 played out, but this series is not over. I know a lot of people will start to anoint the Panthers. They will start to point fingers on Edmonton. They'll say, oh, McDavid doesn't have a goal. Draisaitl doesn't have a goal. They'll start to point the finger at Stuart Skinner. And look, when you are trying to make up a deficit, and the Oilers were coming into this series as slight underdogs, when you are the underdog, you need your difference makers to make a difference. You need your star players to be able to make things happen that the normal guy can't. And McDavid and Draisaitl had looks tonight. And I don't want to get ahead of myself talking about stuff from the game tonight, but very different from game number 1, something that I had mentioned on yesterday's show right after going into the week, going into game 2, that I expected this game to have a different feel because Florida was going to adjust and the Oilers were going to change some things to try and make some things happen. So there's a lot to digest, but my big message, my opening salvo, the thesis of this episode, if you will, the series is not over. Can you be worried? Of course. Can you be stressed out? Of course. That's what sports are for. Sports aren't to make us happy. They're to make us stressed out or miserable in large collectives. They're about communal suffering. It's just like religion. You wait, and then eventually maybe there's a payoff if you believe in that type of thing. But I digress. Continue going on. This series is not over. Florida is a very good team. You have to give credit where it's due. And look, we're going to talk about the officiating. We're going to talk about Florida. We're going to talk about the Oilers' decision-making in this game, some of the penalties they took down the stretch, and why, even though the Oilers were the ones lashing out to some degree, you got to feel like the officials are semi-culpable in that because they're letting it happen. If they really want to police the game, police the game. Do not give me this half-handed BS, oh, we want them to play, and then start calling ticky-tack things. So, macro level, what's not working right now for the Oilers? They cannot get to the middle at all. They are having a hard time generating offense consistently. And we knew that was going to be the case. We know Florida is a very good defensive team. And one opinion that is slowly forming about this series that I do agree with, that I don't think is reactionary or premature, is that Florida plays a very bleh style when you're watching on TV. There's just not a whole lot going on. And Florida's a talented team. I'm not saying they're like the Senators in 2017 or, the trap down Ottawa Senators of what was that, 2007 against against the Lightning, I want to say. I think Reed Boucher was the coach, if I remember correct. I forget who the coach of the Senators was that was doing it. Maybe Guy Boucher? I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I was like 7 or 8 years old when that happened. But the Panthers clutch, they grab, they muck it up. And something that I am concerned about in this series at large, Florida gets better as these games go along, and their style is particularly conducive to getting better as the game goes along because it doesn't fluctuate. They want to get the puck in deep, they want to make you play defense, and they want you to work. Even if you get the puck, you're tired. You got to come off the ice by the time you win the puck. That's something Florida's done a nice job of. One of the first shifts of the third period, the Oilers got a good look right away, and then the Panthers came back down, and they had McDavid in his own zone for 30 seconds. It's tough. You look at some of these Florida goals, and they're breakdowns. They are not getting beat. They are guys making mistakes, and mistakes are correctable, but it starts to accumulate. Frustration is a thing. We try and keep our heads level so we don't throw a TV remote through a wall. They got to keep their heads level as to not spear guys. And look, I understand why Sam Carrick did it. Buddy took a run at him, full speed, knocked him on his butt, probably didn't feel too good, and said, you know what, screw this guy. I'm getting my lick back. The game's already over, whatever. The officials let that stuff happen because they don't do a proper job of officiating the game. But macro, not game 2, not yet. The Oilers need to find a way to get offense. I talked about it a lot on yesterday's show. I'm going to repeat it now. Florida's really good defensively, and that means more work, And I don't want to use that talking point. I want to save that for game 2 when we start talking about game 2 in the second segment. So I'm going to circle back around to that one. I'm going to tuck that one away up here. But I am not panicking. I do think the Oilers need to find a way to shake things up. They need something to change their juju a little bit. And I thought an Ekholm goal to open the scoring tonight was the perfect way. I said it on yesterday's show. The Oilers are going to need an ugly one, just something to show that Bobrovsky's mortal. Like Rocky IV, when Rocky makes Drago bleed for the first time, he's human. He can bleed too. That's the type of energy the Oilers needed tonight. And they had a hard time. The Panthers had the puck a lot. It was a very direct contrast to game number 1. And I'm not ready to start my retrospectives. I think a lot of people get very excited this time of year. And look, I understand recent NHL history. I understand that most Stanley Cups in the last 15 years have been decided in 5 or 6 games. That one team kind of seizes control, and then the other team might be able to get a salvo back and drag it out a little bit. For the most part, we're talking 5 or 6 games. And the Oilers now are at a point where they can't lose at home. If they lose one of the 2 games back up in Alberta the rest of this week, their odds of winning this series are going to basically be close to nil. Not impossible, unlikely. Understanding odds and probability is difficult. It took me 2 times to pass intro to statistics in college. Believe me, I understand. You don't want to make this even more difficult. You're going to have as loud and voracious a building as humanly possible going into game 3. Your fans are going to be a little nervous. They're going to need something from you early to just let them know that, hey, we didn't just spend a kidney, a liver, a gallbladder to get in the door only for us to lose to Florida again. So we are going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about game number 2 coming up here on Locked On Oilers, so be sure to stick around. So much of life is unpredictable. These are tumultuous times, and life insurance can help give your family peace of mind. That's why you should visit our friends at Policygenius. Policygenius helps you easily compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. Their award-winning agents can even walk you through the process step by step. Your work life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Even worse, if you switch jobs, it may not come with you. Policygenius has no incentive to recommend one insurer over the other, so you can trust their guidance. They have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. Get peace of mind by finding the right life insurance policy with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. thank you to everybody who is making Locked On Oilers a part of their Tuesday, whether it is first thing in the morning and you need someone to talk you off the ledge on the way to work, on the way to school, or if you're in the gym and you're a glutton for punishment, you want to listen to the Oilers lose while you're getting in a good lift. Been there. Believe me, I understand the value of sulking in it a little bit and the mental focus of, all right, I got to climb out of this. And you put that weight up, someone's got to put it back up once you pull it down. So I understand if you're a little bit on the wrong, you woke up on the wrong side of the pillow, you decided to lift first thing in the morning, and this is what you're listening to. So first of all, thank you. Second of all, let's talk about the game itself. I talked about this on the crossover we did with Florida, with Locked On Panthers with Armando. I talked about this on Locked On NHL with Hunter last week. I've talked about this ad nauseum over the last 3 weeks, being that the Rangers played Florida right before this, and I also do a Rangers podcast. Florida is miserable to play against because they push your buttons ad nauseum. They are frustrating. They are physical. They are genuinely downright annoying. And worst of all, the state of officiating in the NHL encourages that behavior. If the NHL wanted a safer game, they have all of the tools to enforce a safer game. They want it like this. The owners, so by extension Gary, because Gary only does what the owners want, they want the games like this. They want them ugly. They want the interferences. They want the high hits. They want the sticks to the face. They want the spearing. And anytime they tell you they don't, you can laugh and point at George Peros being the head of player safety. Let's start here. The Foegele hit is bad. The Foegele hit on Luosterainen is bad. He shouldn't do that. I understand why a person would act irrationally in that situation. I don't think Warren Foegele particularly caring at that moment that we need to do something in this moment. I'm getting mad. I'm going to hit this guy as hard as I possibly can. Oh, his knee's out. I'm going to hit his knee. That's not a decision of a rational actor. You know, we talk about operating under the assumption that there are two rational actors when you're trying to have a discussion or maybe come to an agreement on something. There wasn't nothing rational about sticking your leg out and hurting a guy. Don't get me wrong. Sam Bennett is a dirtbag. I can't believe he didn't get in trouble for punching Marchand in the face in the second round. Can't believe he didn't get in trouble for trying to run Ryan Lindgren through the glass last round. Can't believe he only got 2 minutes for the knee-on-knee hit he delivered a few minutes before the Foegele one. Let's be honest here. Sam Bennett is pushing the rules as far as he possibly can, and he is daring the officials and the NHL to stop him. The NHL wants this. The owners want this. They don't care about player safety. We all know this. The Department of Player Safety is a farce. Now, does Draisaitl leave his feet on the hit on Barkov that knocked Barkov out of the game? Yes, he does. If Draisaitl stays on his feet and delivers that check, I think there's no problem. I think roughing, I don't understand how that's roughing considering it's a body check. If anything, that has to be illegal head contact. But again, the officials are all making this up. Yeah, I don't know what Sportsnet's coverage was, but down here in the States, they brought in Dave Jackson, their rules expert, who said, and this is paraphrasing because I don't have the transcript directly in front of me, but he said, in the spirit of player safety, I would call that a 5-minute major. And then after they come back after the review and Florida, they only give Draisaitl 2 minutes for roughing. He says, "Oh well, I think that's the right call, but you can't ever criticize the on-ice officials if you work." I mean, Pierre LeBrun saying, "Oh, these officials have such a hard job," then don't do it. I cannot deal with the bootlicking, the agenda pushing that the national media has to always be talking up the league. Always, everything's great. Gary says this. Bill Daly says this. I don't care. They're full of it. They are trying to sell you on what they want to do. Right now, and look, I could understand, again, just like with Fogle, I understand Draisaitl being irrationally mad in that moment. I'm a really good player. I can't get a thing going. You know what? F this guy. I'm going to make the hit. I'm going to throw a big hit, and whatever happens after that, happens after that. The NHL wants that. And speaking of officials, tell me how that's not delay of game. I'm still waiting for somebody to tell me how it's not delay of game that should have given the Oilers a 5-on-3. I absolutely befuddled how that's not called. Absolutely mind-boggling how you get that wrong. That puck is on the blue line. The blue line is part of the zone. That is delay of game. The Oilers were robbed of a 5-on-3. And don't give me they're human. This is why we have a central review system. I do not understand how they can say we want to get it right, and that's why we have the ridiculous offsides challenge. But, this isn't reviewable when you have a room of people at the league office who are on call for reviews. I do not understand how we are in the year 2024 and we cannot get things like this right that are obvious. But we're going to stop a game for 8 minutes to do an offsides review because a puck might be that much over the line before somebody got the zone, which isn't even the spirit of why the challenge was put in place for the offsides. We can't get that. We can't get delay a game right, but we can get offsides right by the 100th of a millimeter. Mind-boggling. And look, the Oilers didn't play well tonight. I have no qualms about saying that. The shots on goal look a lot better than they were. They could not get a whole lot going offensively. The breakdowns by period for shots on goal, they're not pretty. 4 and 3, have 7 shots on goal through 2 periods. It's not going to cut it against Bobrovsky. And at 1-1 going into the third period, sitting there, you kind of felt like you needed Connor or Leon to make something happen. And short of that, short of a play outside of structure, short of something explosive, you felt it was going to be difficult for the Oilers to string together good shifts. The idea I had in the first segment that I tucked away in my brain, when the Oilers first pulled the goalie with about 5.5, 6 minutes to go, when it was 4-on-4, so it could go to 5-on-4 with an empty net, it took the Oilers 9 passes. I think it was 8 or 9 passes. My notes aren't very legible. It was 8 or 9 passes on the power play to set up one scoring chance, which didn't even end up on net. It was a good look, don't get me wrong, but if you miss the net, it's a scoring chance, not a shot on goal. You don't get it on net, you don't have rebounds, you don't have deflection opportunities, you don't have that jam play opportunity. So to break down that Florida defense, the Oilers are going to have to start getting creative. Those shots from the point are not going to get through everything. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to cycle. It's ugly. It's not their game. But to break down a well-structured a team as Florida is, you're going to have to find a way to do something you're not comfortable with. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. The Oilers are not dead, but if they continue down the path they're currently on, they may be in trouble. I don't think, and these might be famous last words, I might end up clipping this and putting like a clown nose on my face, but I don't think Draisaitl is going to get suspended for the hit on Barkov. I think he probably gets the $5,000, whatever it is, the maximum allowable fine under the CBA. I do think Warren Fogle might get suspended, considering he was given a game misconduct. I'm sure Sam Bennett will be given flowers by ESPN and Sportsnet for bringing a physical presence to the game and not allowing Edmonton's star power to steal the show. The discourse if the Panthers win the Stanley Cup is going to be disgusting, but fear not. The Oilers are going to make this a series. We're going to talk about how coming up next on Locked On Oilers, so be sure to stick around. It is a beautiful time in the sports calendar. There is high-level championship competition almost every night in the NHL and the NBA. WNBA, full swing if you're in on the Caitlin Clark train like me, or the New York Liberty, who very good start this year in the WNBA. Formula One, they were in Montreal this past weekend. NASCAR was in Sonoma this past weekend. Summertime, of course, means baseball. And you can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything from finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. If you were so interested in placing a wager, the Oilers are minus 134 on the money line Thursday night for game number 3. The over-under for the game is 5.5 goals, priced at minus 105 for over, minus 115 for under 5.5, if you were so interested. If you would like to, visit fanduel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you very much for listening to today's edition of Locked On Oilers. I know you're probably feeling it right now. You're probably feeling stressed. You're probably feeling we made it all this way and this is how we've played. And look, there's only so much I'm going to be able to say to you to provide comfort. What I will say is this. The Oilers were in dead last at one point this season, and they rallied back and played at like a 670 win percentage once Chris Knoblauch was appointed head coach. They trailed 3-2 against Vancouver, and they came back to win that series, and they got a win from Calvin freaking Pickard. They went into that Dallas series as reasonable underdogs, and Chris Knoblauch pushed the right buttons. You got Broberg in for Desharnais, and the Oilers made it happen. Got back to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in 18 years. This is adversity. This is being in the fire. You know, I forget what the name of the cornerman is, but there's this old clip. It's from the early 2000s where he's in the corner with his fighter in boxing, and he's got his hands on the boxer's shoulders and he's pressing his forehead against his. And he says, "We are firemen. We train for this. We are running through the fire and we are ready. You do all that work. You do all that preparation, because when it comes down to it, you know you're going to have to go somewhere that you're uncomfortable to get what you want. We are firemen. The fire's coming. What are we going to do about it?" It's that straightforward if you're the Oilers. You're in the fire right now. Are you going to get out, or is the building going to burn down and collapse on you? I don't think the Oilers have played terribly in this series. They were not good, but it's not like they were thoroughly embarrassed tonight. Maybe some of their actions, you know, if you want to take a little bit more of a neutral perspective, it's not a great look to be trailing in a game, trailing in a series, and you slash guys, you throw a hit that's a little questionable. I know you don't care about that. You care about the Oilers winning game 3 and going on to win this series. What I will tell you, the last time a team came back from 2-0 down in the Stanley Cup Final and went on to win the Stanley Cup was the Boston Bruins. That was 2011. That's a very different NHL. But that series turned when it got back to Boston. Vancouver had home ice in that series. They played really well in those first 2 games. Yes, there was an overtime game in there. Yes, there was a 1-0 win in there. They played well in those games. Then the Canucks went back to Boston and lost games 3 and 4 by a combined goal total of 12-1. I'm not saying the Oilers are going to hang a 12 spot on the Panthers. If they do that, I will eat my hat. Not this one, because I like this Guardians hat. I got this when I went to Cleveland a couple of years ago. But I will eat a hat. I will cut it up with a knife and fork and do my best to consume some cardboard, because 12-1 on aggregate over 2 games against maybe the best defensive team in the league is crazy. 12-1, you got it. I will eat a hat for 12-1. The Oilers are absolutely in this series. Their star players have yet to really make a big presence. They've yet to really make an impact. We need to see what the deal is with Draisaitl. I don't imagine there will be supplemental discipline because I'm sure Gary's going to lean on them to not make one of the stars of the series sit out a game. I do think Fogel probably gets suspended, so we'll see who draws back in from the bottom half of the lineup that's alternated in and out. I really want to see the Oilers put together a consistent effort. They were good in game one. They arguably, and look, deserve-o-meter doesn't matter. They played well in game one. That was something that probably wasn't repeatable. But as that game went along, Florida did get better. The gap closed, and even though the Oilers trailed, they put some good looks together. They made Bob work. Tonight, Bob didn't have to do as much. You know, they scored one goal on one shot, and they only had, 9 scoring shots on goal? Through 7, excuse me. They only had 7 shots on goal through 2 periods tonight. They're going to do a better job of getting heat on Bob. I know that for a fact, because if not, the fire's going to start to circle in. This Oilers team has shown resolve in difficult situations. There may be no more difficult situation than being down 2-0 against an elite defensive team like Florida with a great goalie like Bobrovsky. It's not impossible. All the Oilers need is to play their game. They're going to have opportunities. They need to get bounces. They need to maximize their opportunities. The Oilers have got to find ways to make the Panthers uncomfortable. And it's hard. The Panthers like the fire. The Panthers are arsonists. They want the house on fire because that's where they thrive. The Oilers, they're the firemen. They got to find a way through the fire to get where they want to go. I think the Oilers are capable of doing this. Winning 4 of the next 5 games is not going to be easy. We have game 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, God willing. 5 games. The Oilers need to win 4 of those 5. They need to win 80% of their remaining games this season if they would like to win the Stanley Cup. That is not impossible. It will be difficult. If the Oilers Stars find a way to get some influence in this series, to make something happen, then we're off to the races and we're going to have a great conclusion to this series. If not, if we're waiting for the Mattias Ekholms of the world, and I love Ekholm, he's one of the best defensive defensemen in the league. If we're waiting for Mattias Ekholm to score goals, this is not going to be a long series. And I'm not I am not trying to point the finger at the Oilers star players. They have a difficult assignment. The Panthers are very good. The Oilers, if they're going to win, they need their guys to make some stuff happen for them. But that will just about do it for this game number 2 recap and game 3 look ahead edition of Locked On Oilers. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. If on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, throw me 5 stars, please. It would be very helpful. If you're watching over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the alarm bell so you get a notification whenever a new episode goes live. Leave me a comment. What do you think the Oilers need to do most in game number 3 to find a way to win? That's what we're going to talk about on tomorrow's show. Till then, let's go Oilers.